Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wealth Wednesday. I'm Dr. Kalpana Sandar, your host, and with me is my lovely co-host, Marisol Uribe. How are you doing, Marisol?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Oh, doing great. I love doing these wealth conversations with you. Marisol and I just love talking about money.
That's right.
Show me the money.
We make it, we protect it, and we grow it.
Exactly. And that's a really great thing to start with. Almost all of us are just consumed with just the making it part. And many of us, most of us, are not worried about the protecting and the growing. And that's why Marisol and I are here every other week, because we want to show everybody the protecting and the growing part. Most of the people that are watching this probably already know how to make it. We deal with a lot of successful people making lots of money. They just don't have the other two things dialed in as well as they would like.
Yeah, let's dial it in. Bring out your notepad, bring out a pen, and let's dive in.
Yes, yeah. So today's topic is really about retirement. You know, many of us have been usually invited to these retirement seminars, dinners, etc. And you know, you want to be careful with these things because you want to protect yourself from bad retirement pitches. Those are out there, unfortunately. Not all of them are, but you want to make sure that you are informed. So we're actually going to give you guys 5 questions that will help you assess this, and you know, just things that you can actually bring with you if you're going to one of these pitches. So I will start with the first one, and that is, what problem is this actually solving for me?
Yes, so you want to go ahead and ask, if this plan that they're suggesting, will they actually protect me from a huge market hit, right? Because when you're of the 60s, you're not really willing to risk your life savings. You don't have that time that you did when you were younger to invest in the high volatility stocks.
And that is so important because, you know, it's kind of funny. I love telling the story about my dad, who he's almost 90, and he will be extremely aggressive in the stock market. And one day I just sat there and thought about it. Why is he able to do that? Well, I mean, he's 90. He's not, you know, if he has 40 years to live, he's not going to be as aggressive, right? So it's almost interesting because you think about it, when you're younger, you could be aggressive, but actually, when you're much older, you could also be aggressive. It's that age around 60 that you can't be so aggressive, right?
Yes, that's a good point. So, huge jump between 60 and 90. And so, if you do have genes that are of longevity, you want to budget for that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the worst feeling I think is to have is that you want to die so that you don't have to worry about the fact that you're running out of money. I don't want to ever be in that position. I'd like to live as long as I can, and I don't want to run out of money.
Yeah, and then there's the flip side of taking required minimum distributions, the RMDs, after you hit a certain age, around 73. You're actually penalized if you don't withdraw from your 401k. So if you're at that point too, these are great questions to think about.
And a lot of people don't know that, so that's a really good point to bring up. So the next question is, oh, I think we were going to go back and forth, and here I am just going, but I started, so might as well finish. How does the company make money here? Because, you know,
Yeah.
they're doing this and they're going to have to make money, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You just want to know what that is, right?
Yes. So there's different ways that financial professionals make money. They either get a percentage of the assets under management that they're managing for you, or they get a commission if it's a commission based product.
Yes. So it's just important to know that. And again, the reality is, sometimes I think people feel like the other people shouldn't make money. But then how can those people continue to provide those services if they're not making any money? So it's silly, honestly, and everybody should be making money because that's how the world goes around. There's nothing wrong with people making money as long as they're doing it in a reputable, honest way. But I also think as a consumer, you should know how that is. How do those people get paid? Just make sure you're comfortable with it. And since
Yeah.
I
And
since,
make sure that you want to stay in contact with the person that you're trusting to move your funds and, give these consultations about what you should do with your money.
oh, that is a really great point. And that's kind of how I live every aspect of my life. Anybody I choose to work with in any part of my world, I mean, whether it's a friend, business associate, I just think, would I actually, do I actually like this person? Because if I don't, that there's something that I need to figure out there because you want to really work with people that you actually genuinely like and trust.
Yeah, definitely. And so, another question we want to bring up today is, what are you giving up to get this benefit? So, sometimes things can be painted in a very pretty light, but you also have to consider the cons, the trade off. What is the opportunity cost of you committing to, say, in certain examples, open yourself up to getting in from an investment company to an insurance company, a contract with an insurance company? And so those are two different worlds. They work differently. And because one world has certain guarantees, it may be at the expense of other features that you may have been used to that you won't have anymore.
Hmm. That's a good point. It's a really good point. And that's why these are important questions to bring with you because they're complicated and maybe they won't be addressed at that dinner. But when there's a follow up call, these are things you can definitely ask. And then the next one, I mentioned this earlier, but what if I die early or live longer than expected? Because those are real questions that need to be answered. And there are ways to mitigate each one. And again, if you have longevity in your family, you may want to plan one way if you're in very good health and it's more than likely you might outlive your money. Or, well, I think nobody even wants to think about if they die early, but you want to make sure that your family is cared for if should that happen.
And also ask yourself if you have a plan in place already for sickness, injury, critical conditions.
Hmm. Or even long-term care and all of that. I mean, there's so much really to plan for because if you don't think about these things when you're capable and when you're of sound mind and body, the next thing you know, something turns and you haven't planned for it in the right way. And life could be very, very difficult in that sense. So planning can really avoid all of those problems in the future.
Take us to the next question.
Yes. Did I miss one here? Oh, yeah. So, how does this fit into the rest of my plan with the taxes, investments, family, and giving?
Yeah, so we're all about impact. I mean, that's one of the pillars that we talk about. And when you start with impact, sometimes you reverse engineer, right? So what does that look like from a wealth standpoint? And what does that look like from, am I well enough to even want to have the energy to have all these activities and go to these events and see these projects through, whether you're supporting foster youth, whether you're supporting rising women entrepreneurs, whatever your interest may be, you want to have the energy to do all that. And so, yeah, look at your hobbies. Is it, something like golf, swim, tennis, pickleball? Um, and then, yeah, pencil in the time to create that impact that you want. So that all allocates time and your treasure, right? Your monetary resources.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's important to have a plan that's very holistic. So you want to know how each piece of your plan fits into the other so that everything looks well-rounded when you set it up. So, you want to plan for everything as much as possible. I know it sounds very unexciting, but I think some people think it's unexciting till this starts to get really exciting.
Yeah, yeah. And it does. It does.
I used to think the same thing a long time ago, that all this talk was not that exciting. But no, I find myself getting more and more excited about this all the time. I learn new things, and it is very interesting because you learn ways that you can really maximize your earnings, mitigate your taxes, have a bunch of different buckets for your investments. Because again, if you're just in 401ks and IRAs, which is what everybody thinks, they're solid because they've got that, you don't realize that you still got some elements that are quite missing there. So those are the things that you want to know, how everything works together. And it takes time to learn all this stuff. It doesn't happen overnight, but that's where we want to bring this awareness to people so they understand these things little by little in 10-minute chunks. And eventually it'll start to feel very familiar. So any closing
Yes.
thoughts,
And next thing you
Michelle?
know, closing thoughts on my end, you want to be that friend, that family member, that loved one that has their stuff together so that if and when you notice a gap on someone else's plan, you could lovingly nudge them to join you in getting their stuff together.
That's very true. Very, very true. I love that. And then my closing thought is, I'm just providing this comprehensive holistic wealth assessment. Just really goes into detail. It's a little bit on the long side, but you don't have to do it all at once. Just have it there with you and fill it as you will, but it'll start to make you more aware of your financial situation. And then, you can have that to start looking at things a little more clearly when you decide it's time for life insurance, trust, whatever the case may be. All the information is in there. So it's on my website. It looks like this. So when you see it, you'll know which one it is. And thank you again for joining us today for another episode of Wealth Wednesday. Thank you, Marisol.
My pleasure. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye.